one definitive point I think that proves it best is that the video that I did recently about the equatorial mount used at the equator on the equinox. And I put that challenge out and said, can any flat earther explain how this works? And I've had nothing.
Please subscribe. Could you sort of pick out the most ridiculous reason that it was fake that you've heard so far? You know, things like the 360-degree LED screens, and, you know, it was green screened originally, then it was those. It's just, it all sounds really school playground.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels like the excuses kind of feel like a barn full of headless chickens while it's on fire, just running around like crazy, literally grasping at anything they can find without even considering the likelihood or the possibility of it. You can kind of see them as they go, kind of hear a possible reason and then go looking for what might fit with that, even though when they don't realize half the time their own claims contradict each other.
So, and I don't mean this now in relation necessarily to the final experiment. It's more about where it took place. So did it have an effect on you as a person? Do you think it's changed your perspective on anything, either about, you know, the argument that the earth is or isn't flat? You know, has it taught you anything about the power of belief from the flat earthers? Because realistically, that's the reason that the flat earthers, they believe that the earth is flat, but what they can't do is prove it. And it's because it's not, as we both well know. But is there anything you think will stick with you for life now that you sort of experienced when you were down there, even if it was just being there?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that it's a once in a lifetime kind of trip. But I'll say once in a lifetime. I would absolutely love to do it again, but I highly doubt that I ever will have the opportunity to. So yeah, I think it's for anybody who gets the chance to go there and experience it, it is something that sticks with them. It's not the kind of place that most people get to just go to on a yearly basis. You know, it's not like just, you know, it's not like heading off to Corfu for a week that you can just do over and over and over again, and after a while it all starts to just merge into one. That's the kind of trip that sticks with you forever.
Yeah.
Such a crazy place. In terms of whether it's changed me, I don't really think so.
No. Because you know what I mean? You know, some people will visit a location and it has such an impact on them. They sort of, it can give them a, you know, a different outlook on life in, you know, in some cases, or, you know, there was nothing that sort of drastic that you were going to kind of carry with you until, you know, apart from the fact that you've been there then. So that would be the thing, yeah?
Well, I have a greater appreciation of sleep now.
Yeah, I'm sure. and your gas fire, probably.
Yeah, I mean, just even like getting to meet like Toon and Critical Think, and you know, like Toon and I, we spent quite a lot of time together on streams. Just, and it's weird the fact that like the people that I've spoken to online but never met in person, and yet arrived and we got together, and it was like we'd just known each other for years, just straight into just talking to each other like friends. We were throwing banter back and forth on live streams. It was really fun to do. So even just like, you know, getting the opportunity to meet them as well. And you know, Jaren to some extent as well. I think Jaren and I got on really well, and we were able to have these really constructive conversations where we actually weren't interrupting each other. We were listening to each other. We were taking each other's points on board and trying to build on that. And I think he and I could have some more conversations in the future about other topics. Like, I'd love to be able to get on a stream with him and start talking about the moon landings, because that's still a sticking point for him.
Somebody else had said that he's not sort of doing the flat earth thing necessarily, but he's most certainly no longer, you know, he's still a conspiracy theorist. Talking about
Yeah,
conspiracy theorists, let's say by some miracle there's a flat earther in the side chat now, or somebody who's kind of on the fence and they think the earth might be flat, apart from the 24-hour sun, because that's, a bit too obvious. What one thing would you tell them to consider before they choose definitively whether or not they believe the earth is flat or accept what the reality is?
I think there are so many points that maybe you don't necessarily. There's so much in day to day life that you don't consider how it works on the earth until you actually experience it. I mean, for example, on the flight to Chile, I was out over the middle of the Atlantic getting Wi Fi from the plane, and the Wi Fi antenna is on the roof of the plane. We're 40,000 feet over the Atlantic and thousands of miles from the nearest cell tower, and yet I'm able to get internet on the plane from an
Yeah,
antenna that's above the plane. So, but
yeah,
most people don't appreciate that these days. They wouldn't stop to
yeah,
think, how is it working? How am I getting this? I
yeah,
think if the
yeah,
one for me at the moment, the one definitive point I think that proves it best is the video that I did recently about the equatorial mount used at the equator on the equinox. Now,
hmm,
the fact that in the middle of the night it tracks the sun perfectly through the day, and then in the middle of the night it's pointing down at the ground. Right, that thing works. You don't have to use it at the equator or on the equinox. You can set it up anywhere on any day, and when the sun sets, the camera's pointing towards the ground. I think just the equator and the equinox makes it more apparent the fact that at midnight the camera is literally pointing straight down at the ground because the sun
yeah,
is on the opposite side of the earth.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
put that challenge out and said, can any flat earther explain how this works? And I've had nothing other than
yeah,
Nathan Oakley's minions saying, "Oh, Earth's measured flat." So
yeah, exactly. I think Nathan Oakley, he's become sort of a parody of himself. He's so ridiculous that I don't think even other flat earthers take him seriously anymore.
no, I think he's holding out to. I think he was hoping that he'd kind of be left after all of this final experiment. I think he was hoping that the rest of the flat Earth community would implode and he could kind of be there as the savior for them all. Uh,
Yeah,
it kind of
yeah,
hasn't worked. I mean, his stream
yeah.
today, I listened.